It's time once again for a sponsored segment on First Report we call Medical Monday. On most Mondays, I talk to one of our sponsors from the medical community about the services that they provide. My guest today on Medical Monday is John Cormier from Aptor Physical Therapy. John, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about something that I experience some of, and that's back pain.
Yeah, we see a lot of people with back pain, help a lot of folks with that, and one of the things maybe that people don't realize is sitting, although you don't think of it as very strenuous, can actually put a lot of strain on your back. And so it's because the position of your back, a lot of times people get slouched down and they lose that inward curve in their low back, and what that does is create a strain on the ligaments and the disc and a lot of pressure to put a strain on the back. And so when we treat someone, we look at rehabilitating the tissues, but also the other part of the equation is getting rid of unneeded stress. So we use something called a lumbar roll, a little patient education tool, and just a little cushion you'll see that you can put behind your back. And so we just show the patient how to tuck that down behind their low back, and then you can see it looks a little bit different when they have it in there.
We've got another image that shows, that's the correct way, right?
Yep, just supports that low back and gets them stacked up well, and that can take a lot of stress. So if you're going on a long car ride or maybe on your job, you sit a lot, that can do a lot to decrease strain on your back and help you with your back pain.
All right, excellent. And as someone that sits on his duff for a living, maybe that's something I should consider. Another thing that you deal a lot with, too, is helping people after they've had major surgery. But I hear from people that go in for major surgery, they're not so much worried about the surgery a lot of times as they are the rehab afterwards. Is it that bad?
Well, that's what we hear. You know, I'll get patients after surgery, a joint replacement surgery or rotator cuff, and when they come in on their first visit, they're just scared to death. They've heard horror stories about how bad it is, and they're like, I know you're going to kill me. And I always, people tell them, well, double up on your pain medicine before you go to therapy. And it always kind of, I feel it shouldn't be that way. And so we work real well with our patients, and 90% of them, when they get to the other side, they say it's not near as bad as they thought it was. And we had one patient say, it was easier and less painful than I ever thought it would be. And so I guess for a lot of people, if they have joint surgery coming up or major orthopedic surgery, it doesn't have to be that bad. There's ways that you can do the therapy and rehab, and your therapist can work with you to where it's not near as painful as maybe what you're afraid of. So I'd like to invite people, if they have fears or concerns about that, give our office a call, and I'd love to sit down and talk with them about how we can make that not near as painful and go easier for them than they thought.
Now, I want to pick your brain about something, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's something that I've noticed. These balls that people get, and they're not medicine balls, they're something else. I can't remember what you call them off the top of your head. But anyhow, you're supposed to get them and sit on them at work in lieu of the chair. And what we just talked about, the lumbar support and all, what are your take on those? Is that okay for your back? Or?
Well, we use them in therapy, and they're great for developing mobility of the low back and also stability, help developing strength in your core. To sit on it all day long, I don't know if I'd recommend that. It'd be like, well, I'm going to exercise, for a whole 8-hour day. It may be a little bit of an overkill, but they definitely have their place, and it can be a lot of good.
Now, if you're somebody that's already experiencing lower back pain, would you use one of those, or would you maybe want to work the pain out first and then think about doing that?
Yeah, probably the best thing to do is, like I say, you need to be under the care of a rehab professional so that they can do an evaluation and take it in steps. Typically, it's not the very first thing we do. We're going to look at joint mobility and flexibility and address those needs before we start working on core strength.
Gotcha, super. Well, John, thanks again for being with us today. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again really soon. Well, if our sponsor sparked your interest today, then you can give them a call down at Aptor Physical Therapy. The number is 205-345-4441. You can find out more about them online at aptorrehabservices.com.